What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This week in cannabis news, we've got some major stories that could change everything. We're talking Supreme Court cases that might end federal prohibition, a massive hemp ban that's already law, Virginia finally getting its shit together on retail sales, and some behind-the-scenes DOJ drama that nobody saw coming. If you care about cannabis policy, gun rights, or just want to know what's actually happening in this space, this is the episode you need to watch. Let's get into it. Story 1. Supreme Court could end federal prohibition. Okay, so here's the big one. On December 15th, that's this Sunday, the Supreme Court is going to announce whether they'll hear a case that could literally end federal marijuana prohibition. Not reschedule it. Not loosen restrictions. Actually end it. The case is called Canna Provisions versus Garland, and it's brought by 4 cannabis companies in Massachusetts: Canna Provisions, Verano Holdings, Gyasi Cellars, and Wiseacre Farm. Their argument is simple. The federal government has no constitutional authority to ban marijuana that never crosses state lines. Here's why this is huge. The last time the Supreme Court looked at this question was 2005 in a case called Gonzalez vs. Reich. Back then, not a single state had legal recreational cannabis. The court said the feds could enforce prohibition because they were trying to eradicate cannabis from interstate commerce. But now, 38 states have medical programs. Almost half the country has legal recreational weed. The federal government has stopped trying to shut down state legal businesses. Congress even passes budget riders every year that protect medical marijuana programs from federal interference. So the argument is, the whole legal foundation from 2005 doesn't apply anymore. The feds aren't trying to eradicate cannabis. They're selectively ignoring state legal markets. That means they're overstepping their constitutional authority under the Commerce Clause. And here's the kicker. Conservative legal groups are backing this challenge. The Cato Institute, Americans for Prosperity, and the Pacific Legal Foundation all filed briefs telling the court to take the case. Even Justice Clarence Thomas has hinted that he thinks the current federal approach might be unconstitutional. If the court agrees to hear this case and rules in favor of the cannabis companies, we're talking about the end of Section 280E, which prevents cannabis businesses from taking normal tax deductions, banking access for the industry, interstate commerce becoming possible, the biggest shift in drug policy in a century. Now they could also just deny the case and leave everything as is, or they could take the case and rule against the plaintiffs. But the fact that this is even on the Supreme Court's radar, with backing from conservative groups, is massive. The announcement comes December 15th. Mark your calendars. Story 2. Hemp ban is already law. Alright, next story. While everyone was distracted by the government shutdown drama last month, Congress snuck a provision into the spending bill that bans most hemp-derived THC products. And it's already law. This isn't a proposal. President Trump signed it, November 12th. It goes into effect November 2026. Here's what it does. The old 2018 Farm Bill said hemp was legal if it had less than 0.3% Delta-9 THC by weight. Companies use that loophole to create Delta-8, THC-A, HHC, and all these other cannabinoids that could get you high but technically qualified as hemp. The new law changes the definition. Now, hemp can only have 0.3% total THC, which includes THC-A. And it bans synthetic or converted cannabinoids entirely. So basically, if you can get high from it, it's illegal again. This kills THC gummies in gas stations, hemp-derived seltzers, THC-A flower, basically the entire $28 billion hemp industry. Why did this happen? Senator Mitch McConnell. The 2018 Farm Bill was his legacy. He pushed hemp legalization to help Kentucky farmers. But then companies started making intoxicating products, and he said it perverted his original intent. This was his last move before retirement. 39 state attorneys general signed a letter asking for this ban. They said unregulated hemp products were more dangerous than state-regulated marijuana because there's no testing, no age restrictions, and some products are stronger than dispensary weed. But here's the problem: enforcement. The Congressional Research Service just published a report saying it's unclear how the DEA and FDA will actually enforce this, and they may lack the resources to do it broadly. So now we've got this law that bans a $28 billion industry, threatens 300,000 jobs, and will probably just push everything into the black market. And nobody knows if the feds can actually enforce it. Hemp companies have 1 year to figure out what to do. Some will pivot to non-intoxicating CBD. Some will move to state-regulated marijuana markets. And some will probably just keep selling and risk it. Story 3. Virginia is finally getting retail sales. Virginia story. They've been stuck in legal limbo since 2021 when they legalized possession but never set up stores to buy it. That's about to change. The state's Joint Commission just unveiled a plan to launch retail cannabis sales by November 1, 2026. And the big news: localities can't opt out. No local referendums. If you're in Virginia, weed stores are coming. Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger has already said she'll sign the bill. That's a huge change from Glenn Youngkin, who vetoed the previous version. Here's the timeline. July 2026, dispensary applications open. September 2026, first micro-businesses start operating. November 1st, 2026, full retail market opens. The plan caps licenses at 350 statewide and includes specific impact licenses for people harmed by past prohibition. They're trying to prevent big multi-state operators from taking over the whole market. Now, some critics say the November launch is too fast. They think only existing medical dispensaries will be ready in time, which could shut out small businesses and equity applicants. But lawmakers are pushing forward anyway. Virginia legalized possession 4 years ago. Since then, people have been able to have weed, but not buy it legally. So there's been this massive gray market of hemp shops, unlicensed storefronts, and illicit dealers. This bill is supposed to fix that. If it passes in January, which it probably will, Virginia becomes one of the biggest new cannabis markets in the country. Story 4. DOJ memo admits gun ban is vulnerable. This one's wild. A newly disclosed DOJ memo from the Biden administration shows that federal prosecutors knew the law banning gun ownership for cannabis users was legally vulnerable. The memo says prosecutors should be cautious before charging people under this law and should consult with a coordinator first to mitigate potential litigation risk. That's basically the DOJ admitting, yeah, this law might not hold up in court. This matters because the Supreme Court just agreed to hear a case on whether this gun ban is constitutional. Multiple federal appeals courts have already ruled against the ban, saying it violates the Second Amendment. The Biden DOJ was nervous about it. They were selectively choosing which cases to prosecute because they knew courts were starting to strike this law down. But the Trump DOJ? They don't seem to care. They rescinded this cautious guidance in September and went back to aggressive enforcement. So now we've got the Supreme Court about to rule on whether cannabis users can own guns, multiple courts saying the current law is unconstitutional, and the DOJ admitting it's vulnerable, but enforcing it anyway. For anyone in a medical marijuana state who also owns firearms, this is something to watch closely. Story 5. Kentucky's first dispensary opens in weeks. Quick final story. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear announced that the state's first medical marijuana dispensary will open within the next couple of weeks. The first one will be in Ohio County, probably before Christmas. After that, they expect the market to scale up very quickly. Kentucky legalized medical cannabis in 2023, but it's taken 2 years to actually get product in stores. Now they've got 48 licensed dispensaries, 16 cultivators, and over 23,000 patients already certified and waiting. Nearly 15,500 of those patients qualified for chronic pain, people who Bessier says might have otherwise been taking opioids. This makes Kentucky the 38th state with a medical marijuana program. And unlike Virginia, they're not stuck in legal limbo. Product is harvested, tested, and ready to go. Wrap up. All right, that's cannabis news for this week. To recap, Supreme Court decides December 15th if they'll hear a case to end federal prohibition. Hemp ban is already law. Takes effect November 2026. Virginia launches retail sales November 2026. DOJ admitted the gun ban for cannabis users is legally shaky. Kentucky's first medical dispensary opens in weeks. Big movements happening right now. Things are changing fast. If you found this useful, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss next week's update. Drop a comment if you've got thoughts on any of these stories, especially that Supreme Court case. I'll see you next week. Stay informed.